The story begins with a woman shouting at the top of her lungs, desperately calling for a man named Willie. She's in a dark forest and hears a noise as she searches. Following the sound, she stumbles upon a horrifying scene. A wolf is feasting on a man. A red moon illuminates the night sky. The next scene introduces an old man fixing a house, trying to get rid of rats. On the second floor, another man, Noah, stands silently by a window gazing outside. Meanwhile, a little girl, Willow, plays on the third floor with her dollhouse. Suddenly, there's a knock at her door. Her mother, Imogen, enters and tells her she needs to take her father somewhere, but promises to return before dark. The scene shifts to the man on the second floor as he steps outside. Willow looks out her window and watches Imogen and grandfather place a large pig into the back of a car. The car drives away. Curious, the Willow removes her oxygen mask and runs to the edge of the woods. She sees the car in the distance, now far away. Suddenly, her grandfather appears behind her. He sternly reminds her of the rules. But it isn't dark yet. Her grandfather insists, his voice firm. "We need to go home." When Willow's mom, Imogen, returned home, she could barely walk. Noah, Willow's dad, was in such bad shape that Imogen and Willow's grandfather had to support him as they helped him to his room. While assisting Noah, her grandfather told Imogen, "Look, this won't last much longer." Their words made Willow even more curious. She couldn't shake the feeling that something strange was happening in their house. That same night, Willow heard screams coming from her father's room, as if he were in pain. Concerned, she went to check on him. To her horror, her dad appeared in a terrifying form and suddenly lunged at her. She screamed, but then his eyes opened. It was just a nightmare. The next morning, Willow saw Imogen washing her dad's bloody coat. Unable to contain her curiosity and fear, Willow summoned her courage and asked, "Mom, what's going on here?" Imogen looked flustered and quickly replied, "Nothing, sweetheart. Everything is fine. Everything is normal." Willow wasn't convinced. Determined to find the truth, she secretly eavesdropped on her parents that night. From behind a small hole in the wall, she overheard her dad say, "Imogen, my condition is getting worse. I know you're suffering because of me." Before he could say anything more, Imogen hushed him and told him to rest. She left the room before Willow saw her dad's red, menacing eyes. He spotted her hiding, and she fled to her room in fear. That night, she was so terrified she could barely breathe and had to put on her oxygen mask to calm herself. Before Noah woke up the following morning, Imogen took Willow to the city. It was Willow's first trip to the town, and she was thrilled. Her grandfather, who adored her, gave her money to buy chocolates and waved them off as they left. Halfway to the city, Imogen stopped the car and changed her clothes. Willow noticed that her mother's body was covered in bruises. Imogen warned her, "Don't tell anyone about this, Willow. Understand?" Willow nodded, though she was deeply unsettled. Imogen then promised, "Today, I'll teach you how to drive." This doubled Willow's excitement. Once they reached the city, Imogen did some shopping for Willow and spent the day together. However, as soon as they returned home, the mood shifted. Noah was waiting for them. When he saw that Imogen had taken Willow shopping, he became furious. Snatching the new dress from Willow's hands, he began smelling it strangely, unsettlingly. Then in a fit of rage, he grabbed both Imogen by her neck as he said, "I love both of you so much." Several days passed, and then the night of all life arrived. As nightfall approached, Imogen packed an animal into her car and left for the forest with Noah. Curious about where they were going and what they were doing, Willow followed them. Hiding in the shadows, Willow watched Imogen and Noah enter a tunnel. Inside, they chained Noah to the wall. Imogen then released the animal she had brought into the cave. She returned to her car once she secured the heavy iron door outside the tunnel. But Willow, determined to uncover the truth, seized the opportunity. As Imogen turned her back, Willow slipped through a gap in the iron door and entered the cave. She wanted to see what was happening to her father. Imogen quickly noticed Willow's absence, and realizing where she had gone, inside she discovered Willow standing frozen, staring in terror at a horrifying sight. Before Imogen could reach her, Willow fainted. Imogen quickly carried her unconscious daughter back home, placing her on her oxygen mask to help her recover. As Willow lay unconscious and terrified, in the cave she had witnessed her father Noah undergoing a monstrous transformation. His body twisted and turned unnaturally. The following day, the entire family sat at the dining table. Noah looked deranged, while Willow was visibly nervous. Imogen, however, sat calmly as though nothing unusual had happened. Unable to take the tension any longer, Willow excused herself and ran to her grandfather's house. When she arrived, she begged him to let her stay with him, explaining how scared she was. Her grandfather tried to convince Imogen to let Willow remain under his care for a few days, but Imogen refused. a heated argument broke out between Imogen and her father, with Imogen insisting that Willow needed to be home. Amid the chaos, Willow quietly slipped away and returned to her house. It was already night when Willow's grandfather secretly came to her room and whispered, "Come with me. You're in danger here." Willow obeyed him and quietly followed. However, when Noah discovered this, he chased them in his car, determined to bring Willow back. After a tense confrontation, he managed to bring her home. Imogen, upon hearing what had happened, was furious. She believed her father had kidnapped Willow. She angrily confronted her father and said, "You will never come to my house again." With that, she slammed the door to her room. But deep down, Imogen was heartbroken. Her father had been her confidant and someone who truly understood her. Now with that bond broken, she felt more alone than ever. To lift Willow's spirits, Noah took her back to the same cave where she had once seen him transform into a wolf. Willow was frightened and reluctant, fearing that her father might harm her. But Noah reassured her. Inside the cave, Noah began to reveal the truth about their family. He told her a story about her grandfather, a kind and loving man. However, on every whole moon night, something uncontrollable happened to him. He would leave everything behind and retreat to the forest. "Your grandfather was a werewolf," Noah confessed. "Every full moon, he turned into a wolf. He always went deep into the forest to protect his family, far away from us," Noah continued. "Even his wife, your grandmother, didn't know his secret. One night, curious about where he went, she followed him. She tracked him into the forest and witnessed his transformation. Seeing him in his terrifying wolf form, she fainted. When the moonlight faded and he regained consciousness the next morning, your grandfather found her lifeless body. He had unknowingly killed his wife while he was a wolf. That grief stayed with him forever." Noah became emotional as he recounted the story. "I am like him, Willow. I am a werewolf too." Tears welled up in Noah's eyes as he shared this painful truth. Willow, seeing her father's sorrow, couldn't bear it. She stepped forward and hugged him tightly. The two returned home together, laughing and feeling closer than ever. Imogen, seeing them happy, was overjoyed. She joined in their laughter, and the family felt whole for the first time in a long while. The three of them lay on the bed together that night, sharing stories and laughter. Imogen turned to Noah and smiled. "When you're like this, your true self, I love you even more." The scene faded as the family adopted this newfound unity and peace. The next day, Noah took Willow to the forest to cut wood. While there, he scolded her over a minor issue, which scared her. Noticing her unease, Noah decided to cheer her up. He smiled and told her, "You're the princess of this forest," which immediately lifted her mood. He sat her on the car trunk to make her feel even better and began feeding her sandwiches. As he returned to the car to retrieve something else, he stumbled upon one of Imogen's dresses, the one she often wore when going to the city. The sight of it sent him into a rage. He grabbed the dress, returned to Willow, and bellowed, demanding to know what she knew about it. When Willow didn't respond, he angrily snatched the sandwich from her hands, threw it aside, and drove her home. When they reached home, Noah's anger hadn't subsided. Imogen noticed the tension and quickly stepped in. She put Willow in the car and drove toward the forest, intending to calm things down. It was a moon night, and Willow, confused and frightened, had no idea what would happen. One day, to break the monotony, Noah decided to celebrate. Imogen baked a cake for Willow, and the mood in the house lightened for a while. Willow, who wasn't feeling well, was cheered up when her grandfather brought her a small puppy as a gift. Seeing the puppy made her happy, and she smiled for the first time in days. The scene then shifts forward to a long time later. It is another whole moon night. As usual, Imogen and Noah have gone to the forest. Meanwhile, something strange begins happening to Willow in the middle of the night. Willow notices that one of her nails has uprooted and blood is seeping. To her horror, her nails start growing rapidly, her body begins to change, and her teeth transform into sharp wolf-like fangs. She panics as she begins to turn into a wolf, but before the transformation is complete, she wakes up. It had all been a terrible nightmare. Terrified, she struggles to breathe and grabs her oxygen mask, placing it over her face to calm herself. Once her breathing stabilizes, she heads to the kitchen to drink water. While there, she hears a noise coming from outside the door. As she hesitates, preparing to open it, her grandfather appears behind her and greets her warmly. "Let's stop worrying about this now," he says gently. Willow then learns that Imogen had returned home earlier, leaving Noah alone in the forest during the moon night. Despite the tension, they leave Willow in her room, unsure how to handle the situation or protect her from what may lie ahead. Imogen took a gun from her father, determined to protect her daughter Willow at all costs. She was ready to kill her husband Noah as soon as Willow was released from his grasp. Willow, however, panicked again. Both Imogen and her father, Willow's grandfather, heard the sound of her falling. They rushed to her, trying to give her oxygen, but realized the tank had run out. Imogen had to go to the basement to retrieve a fresh oxygen cylinder. Despite the dangers outside, she moved quickly to the basement. On her way back upstairs, the gun accidentally fell from her pocket. Noah, still outside, was lurking. Imogen frantically knocked on the door, yelling in frustration and fear. As her father tried to calm her down and give Willow the oxygen she needed, they managed to stabilize Willow. However, they heard noises downstairs. Someone had entered the house. Imogen suspected it was Noah. She wanted to confront him with the gun, but then remembered it had been lost. Her father decided to go downstairs alone, while Imogen hid with Willow in a cupboard. When Noah came down, he was furious. He attacked Willow's grandfather, lifting him and throwing him against a wall where he was impaled on decorative horns. Severely injured, the grandfather fell to the ground. But Noah, consumed with rage, stormed upstairs to find Imogen. Meanwhile, Imogen hid in the room with Willow. When Willow regained consciousness, she started to scream in fear, but Imogen quickly placed her hand over Willow's mouth to silence her. Noah, unable to find them in the room, left, giving Imogen a chance to escape. Imogen hurriedly carried her injured father to the basement. As they tried to escape, they found the basement door locked. Thinking quickly, Willow, outside, used the car's towing hook to pry the gate open. Imogen managed to get her father into the car, but the vehicle wouldn't start. Her father, despite his injuries, insisted they leave him behind and escape with Willow. Imogen reluctantly agreed and took Willow into the woods. However, Noah ambushed them, snatching Willow and dragging her into his lair. Imogen followed, screaming for her daughter. Inside the cave, Noah, now in his wolf form, held an unconscious Willow. Instead of fighting, Imogen used love and reason to reach Noah. She gently held his face, reminding him of their family and the love they once shared. Her words calmed him as he remembered the good moments with his family. He eventually released Willow, who was now safe but still unconscious. However, Noah's memories of betrayal and anger resurfaced. He attacked Imogen, blaming her for everything. As he was about to harm her, Willow regained consciousness and devised a plan. Using her oxygen mask and cylinder, she directed the oxygen to feed a nearby fire, aiming it at Noah. The flames engulfed him, and Noah was burned to death. With Noah gone, Imogen, her father, and Willow escaped the house, finally free from the nightmare. Ultimately, Willow is shown reading a book about werewolves while Imogen packs their belongings to leave the house. Through flashbacks, it is revealed that Noah was never indeed a werewolf, but a psychotic man who derived pleasure from torturing his family. His wolf form manifested Willow's imagination, shaped by years of fear and trauma. With Noah's death, Imogen and Willow prepare to start a new life, leaving behind the horrors of the past.